All right, so we're taking a deep dive today into something I think everyone listening has probably thought about.
Mm-hmm.
Learning English with podcasts.
Okay.
We're going to go a little beyond the basics today
Right.
to really uncover some of the ways that you can make podcasts a powerful tool
Okay.
in your language learning journey.
You know, I think a lot of people think of podcasts as just kind of like passive entertainment,
Yeah,
but they can be so much more than that.
right.
The trick is really understanding how to leverage some of the strengths.
So it's not just about having something on in the background while I'm doing the dishes or,
Exactly.
folding laundry.
It's not background noise.
Yep.
It's something that you can actively use.
Okay, so how do I do that?
Well, think about it like this.
Okay.
If you were trying to learn basketball,
Mm-hmm.
would you just watch games on TV and expect to become a pro?
No, you got to actually get out there and shoot some hoops.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to practice.
Right.
And it's the same thing with language learning.
So how does that apply to podcasts, though?
Well, podcasts give you this incredible access
Yeah.
to real unscripted conversations.
Right.
So it's almost like you're eavesdropping on hemio speakers in their natural habitat.
Okay.
You're picking up on nuances and expressions
Yeah.
that you wouldn't necessarily find in a textbook.
That's so true.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's say I'm ready to use podcasts this way.
Mhm.
How do I even choose the right one for me?
Yeah.
There are thousands and thousands of podcasts out there,
Exactly. And that's where it can get really overwhelming.
especially if you're not a beginner anymore.
Absolutely.
Like, I've got the basics down, but how do I go from there?
You don't want to just pick any podcast.
Right.
It's really important to match it to your level.
Okay.
So, for instance, if you're comfortable with everyday English,
Mm-hmm.
a show like All Ears English is fantastic.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, they have this one episode where they break down like the subtle differences between look, see, and watch,
Oh, interesting.
which even native speakers get mixed up sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure I have.
It's those kinds of insights that really help you
Yeah,
go beyond just basic fluency.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that's a great example
Mhm.
of how podcasts can help us catch those little things
Exactly.
we might miss otherwise.
Yep.
What about for people who are more at an advanced level, though?
Yeah, for more advanced learners,
Mm-hmm.
The Daily from the New York Times is fantastic.
Okay.
They had a recent episode actually about climate change,
Yeah, okay.
where they used phrases like tipping point and mitigation strategies.
Wow. Yeah, those are some advanced vocabulary words.
Yeah, and the thing is, the host just weaves it
Mm-hmm.
so seamlessly into this compelling narrative
Right.
that it really helps you expand your lexicon.
Okay, so it's not just about finding a podcast that I like,
Right.
but one that's actually challenging me with the language.
Exactly.
But not so much that I can't understand anything. Okay, that makes sense.
So it's finding that sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah.
even if you find like the perfect podcast for you,
Yeah.
just having it on in the background isn't going to do much.
Okay.
You need to shift from passive listening
Okay.
to active engagement.
I like that.
It's kind of the difference between looking at a map
Yeah.
and actually going on a hike.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, you got to get out there and experience it.
Okay, so what does active listening look like
Right.
when we're talking about language learning?
Think of it as like a 3-step process.
Okay, I'm ready.
First, you want to pause frequently.
Okay.
So whenever you encounter a new word or a phrase,
Mhm.
that sparks your interest.
Yeah,
Hit that pause button.
got it.
Then you're going to repeat it out loud,
Okay.
really focusing on the pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to the intonation, the stress patterns,
Oh, wow.
the rhythm of the sentence.
So it's about mimicking not just the words,
Right.
but the music of
Yeah.
the language. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. And then finally, the most important step,
Gonna write it down.
write it down.
We're writing it down.
Jot down the word or phrase in a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
This will help you remember it.
Okay.
And then later you can look it up. You can add it to your vocabulary bank.
So it's like a treasure hunt for new words and phrases.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And as you keep doing this, you'll start noticing patterns.
Mm-hmm.
You'll start to understand the nuances
That
of grammar and pronunciation in a much deeper way.
makes sense. I can see how that would work.
Yeah.
This is all super helpful, by the way.
Oh, good.
I've always struggled, though, with the speaking part. Like, listening is one thing, but getting myself to actually open my mouth
Right.
and speak a new language,
Yeah.
it's terrifying.
I understand. It's like stepping out on stage for the first time.
Yeah.
Everyone feels that way initially.
Right.
But you have to remember,
Yeah.
even native speakers make mistakes.
Oh, that's true.
The key is to just start speaking, even if it feels awkward at first.
Okay.
And podcasts can be a great tool for this too.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
How can podcasts help with speaking if I'm not talking to anyone?
This is where mimicry comes in.
Okay.
So instead of just passively listening,
Mm-hmm.
try talking along with the podcast host.
Oh,
Repeat phrases, imitate their intonation.
okay.
Even try to match their pacing.
So it's almost like shadowing a master speaker.
Exactly.
Like you're my own personal language coach.
Precisely.
Okay, I like that.
You're training your mouth and your brain to produce the sounds naturally.
Yeah,
And it builds confidence because you're in a safe space.
right.
No one's judging you.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, the challenge is often not the technique itself, but sticking with it.
Yeah.
Life gets busy, you know?
Oh, tell me about it.
Finding the time for consistent practice can be tough.
Yeah, I'm great at starting things with good intentions, but then
Right.
life happens.
I get it.
Yeah.
The key is to make it a part of your existing routine.
Okay.
You don't need to block out hours.
Right.
Even 5 or 10 minutes a day can make a huge difference.
Oh, wow. Okay, so just little
Don't
chunks
buy
of
it.
time.
Little pockets of time.
Okay.
Like, think about it. You could listen
Mm-hmm.
while you're getting ready in the morning,
Yeah.
commuting to work or school,
Mm-hmm.
even working out.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like taking those little moments
Yeah.
that I wouldn't even think to use
Yeah.
and turning them into learning opportunities.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Speaking of maximizing our learning, how about transcripts?
Oh, transcripts are fantastic.
Do you think they're helpful?
Absolutely. They're like having subtitles for your ears.
I love that.
Yeah, they're so helpful for boosting your comprehension,
Okay.
especially for more complex topics or when you encounter unfamiliar vocabulary.
Yeah.
Because seeing the written form while you're listening,
Mm-hmm.
it helps to solidify the connection
Right.
between spoken and written English.
It's like unlocking another layer.
Precisely, understanding.
Yeah.
Uh,
And they're also invaluable for pronunciation practice.
Okay, how so?
Well, seeing how a word is spelled can
Mhm.
often clarify how it's pronounced,
That's true.
especially for those tricky vowel sounds or consonant clusters.
Yeah, sometimes I hear a word
Right.
and I think I know how to say it,
Yeah.
but then when I see it written down, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I've been saying that wrong this whole time.
It happens to the best of us.
Okay, good to know I'm not alone.
Transcripts are a great way to catch those subtle pronunciation errors
Uh,
and really refine your spoken English.
okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a lot of great ways
Mm.
to learn with podcasts,
Right.
but all this knowledge is only really valuable
Hmm.
if we can actually use it
Exactly.
in real life situations,
That's where the rubber meets the road.
right?
So the big question is,
Mm-hmm.
how do we bridge the gap
Okay.
between podcast learning
Uh,
and real-world application? That is the million-dollar question.
it is.
It is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. And the key to this is actually pretty simple.
Okay. Lay it on me.
Use it or lose it.
Okay.
Remember all those words and phrases you wrote down?
Yeah, my little treasure hunt.
Exactly. They're not meant to stay trapped in your notebook.
So set them free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Find opportunities to use them
Okay.
in real conversations.
Easier said than done, though, right?
I know. I hear you.
Like, when am I supposed to find time to practice?
It doesn't have to be a huge time commitment.
Okay.
Even just short bursts of practice can be really effective.
Okay.
So think about it. How many times a day
Hmm.
do you find yourself like waiting in line,
Oh, yeah.
commuting,
Mm-hmm.
or even just walking from one place to another?
More times than I care to admit.
Right. Those are all opportunities for micro practice.
Okay.
So instead of scrolling through social media or just kind of zoning out,
Mm-hmm.
use those few minutes to review vocabulary, practice pronunciation, or even have a little conversation with yourself in English.
Wait, talking to myself?
Yeah.
Is that a sign of...
Let's just say it's a sign of a dedicated language learner.
Okay, I like that.
Seriously, though, talking to yourself out loud can be really effective.
Okay.
It helps you get comfortable with the sounds of the language.
Yeah.
You can practice different sentence structures and build fluency
Okay.
without the pressure of an audience.
So no one's judging me,
No one's judging you.
except maybe my cat.
Well, maybe your cat will pick up a few English phrases along the way.
There you go.
But speaking of practice, let's shift gears a bit
Okay.
and talk about something that often gets overlooked.
Okay, what's that?
The power of podcasts to connect us with different cultures and perspectives.
Well, that's a good point.
It's one of the most amazing things about podcasts.
Yeah.
They give us access to voices and stories from all over the world,
Right.
allowing us to learn about different cultures,
Mm-hmm.
traditions, ways of life.
It's like having a virtual passport.
Certainly, you can travel to different countries,
Mm-hmm.
experience different cultures, all without leaving your living room.
I love that.
And it's not just about learning facts and figures.
Right?
It's about developing empathy, understanding, and appreciation
Yeah.
for the diversity of human experience.
That's so important, especially today.
It is.
It's so easy to get stuck in our own little bubbles.
Hey.
But podcasts can help us break out of those bubbles and connect with people from all walks of life.
And that's why podcasts can be such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
Not just for language learning, but for personal growth as well.
I'm starting to realize that podcasts are a lot deeper than I initially thought.
Yeah, they're not just about entertainment or education.
Yeah.
They're about connection, understanding, expanding our worldview.
Beautifully said. I love that.
And the best part is there's a podcast out there for everyone.
Right.
No matter what your interests are.
Okay, so give me an example.
So whether you're passionate about history, science, art, or even something as niche as like the history of cheese making,
Okay.
there's a podcast out there waiting to be discovered.
That's awesome. Now, I'm really curious. What are some of the more unusual podcasts you've come across?
Oh, there are so many.
I bet.
I recently stumbled upon a podcast
Yeah.
about the history of punctuation.
The history of punctuation.
Of all things.
Wow.
And believe it or not,
Yeah.
it was absolutely fascinating.
You know, that's definitely not something you're going to find on mainstream radio.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of podcasts.
Yeah.
They allow us to dive into those niche interests, those hidden corners of knowledge that we might never have explored otherwise.
I feel like I've been missing out.
Well, it's never too late to start exploring.
That's true.
The podcasting world is vast and constantly evolving.
Right.
So there's always something new to discover.
Okay, that's exciting. This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the power and potential of podcasts.
It's been a real pleasure exploring this world with you.
Likewise.
And I hope our listeners feel empowered
Yeah.
to embark on their own podcast adventures.
Absolutely. So before we wrap things up, is there anything else you want to share? Any final words of wisdom?
My final thought would be this.
Okay, I'm listening.
Don't be afraid to experiment. The beauty of podcasts is that there's something out there for everyone.
Yeah.
So explore different genres, try different formats,
Okay.
and see what sparks your joy.
That's such great advice. It's all about finding those audio gems
Yes.
that resonate with you, that make you think, that make you feel, that make you want to come back for more.
Beautifully said. And remember, the journey of discovery is half the fun.
So well, on that note, we'll bring this deep dive into the world of podcasts to a close.
Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
And happy listening. It does feel like an overwhelming number of choices out there.
Yeah, it can be.
So many podcasts. How do we find the good ones?
Well, one thing I always recommend is checking out curated lists.
Okay, curated lists.
Yeah, a lot of podcast apps and websites have these where they highlight shows based on different categories or themes.
Oh, that's cool. So it's like having a personal podcast concierge.
Exactly.
Oh,
and don't be afraid to kind of go down the rabbit hole of recommendations.
What do you mean?
So if you find a show you like, chances are they'll mention other podcasts that might be of interest.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, so it's like a treasure map.
Okay.
Leading you to more hidden gems.
I like that. Okay, what about using keywords or search terms?
Absolutely. If you have a particular topic in mind,
Yeah.
like say you're really interested in the history of jazz music or the science of sleep,
Okay.
use those specific keywords to narrow down your search.
Got it.
Most podcast apps have pretty sophisticated search engines these days
Okay, that makes sense.
that can help you find exactly what you're looking for.
So we've got curated lists, recommendations, keyword searches. What else? What are your secret weapons?
Don't underestimate the power of social media.
Oh, social media. Okay.
A lot of podcast creators are really active on platforms like Twitter and Instagram,
Yeah, that's true.
where they'll engage with listeners, share updates about their shows.
Okay.
So following them can be a great way to stay in the loop
Yeah.
and discover new podcasts.
It's like getting insider tips from the podcasting world.
Exactly.
Okay.
And don't hesitate to just reach out and ask for recommendations.
Oh, yeah, just ask people.
You'd be surprised how many people are passionate about podcasts.
That's true. People love to share what they love.
Exactly. And they're eager to share their favorites.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about using podcasts for language learning,
Right.
cultural exploration, niche knowledge. But it seems like they can also build community.
Oh, absolutely.
Like when I listen to my favorite podcasts,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm part of something.
You are.
It's like this virtual book club,
Exactly.
but for audio.
Yeah, you have that shared experience
Right.
of listening to the same stories, the same
Yeah.
ideas,
Mm.
the same voices.
And then you have all these online communities where
Mhm.
people can connect and discuss episodes.
Exactly. Share their thoughts and perspectives,
Yeah.
and even form friendships.
It's crazy to think that something as simple as listening to a podcast
Right?
can create all these connections.
Yeah, it can foster this real sense of belonging.
Especially, I think, in a world that feels increasingly fragmented and isolating.
I agree.
It's kind of amazing.
It is.
This whole conversation has been so eye-opening.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective
Good.
on the power of podcasts.
It's been a pleasure exploring this world with you,
Likewise.
and I hope our listeners are feeling inspired
Mm-hmm.
to embark on their own podcast adventures.
Yes, so before we wrap up,
Yeah.
any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Just this, don't be afraid to experiment.
Okay.
The beauty of podcasts is there's something out there for everyone.
Right.
So explore different genres, try different formats,
Mm-hmm.
see what sparks your joy.
That's such great advice. It's about finding those audio gems
Yes!
that make you think,
Wow.
make you feel, make you want to come back for more.
Beautifully said, and remember the journey is half the fun.
So true.
Right.
Well, on that note, we'll bring this deep dive to a close.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks for joining us, and happy listening.